Today, the coalition of the willing met in Paris. And in doing so, we got to see a lot unfold. We got to see where people sit, how many countries are willing to send troops to Ukraine after the war is over and truce is finally there. And I wanted to break down everything for you. On TikTok, I did a quick 3-minute video. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of information that A, is public, B, we can just kind of guess to see how things are going. And so I wanted to sit down and maybe break down some of this for you in just say more detail, because there really is a lot, and there's a lot that we're going to be finding out in the next few days. And so we're going to go quickly through the list, break it down, and give you context where I have some information. So first and foremost, there was over 36 different countries involved in today's meeting, Coalition of the Willing. The majority of them were on Zoom. Only really 10 were able to make it in person. The United States was involved. We saw the U.S. envoy for peace talks with Russia, Steve Witkoff, there. Witkoff is the one that fumbled the entire information with Russia. So it actually really is interesting to see Witkoff at this kind of meeting, because before in Russia, he didn't have the protocol right. He had a Kremlin translator, which gave him wrong information, or maybe he misunderstood, which told Trump that, hey, they want to give up Kherson and Zaporizhia if they can keep, Luhansk and Donetsk. That information was wrong, but he told it to Trump. Trump then put the meeting forward, worked on a side deal, which would have been with ExxonMobil and Russia, but essentially found out during the meeting that that information was wrong. Witkoff was wrong. So it's weird to see Witkoff at these meetings. That aside, we also saw the EU Commission President. We saw the German Chancellor. Obviously, Macron was there. Starmer was there, and a few other folks. And so they sat down and had multiple meetings. This meeting really was to be the final framework for some kind of security guarantees for Ukraine. Because even though Russia is doing everything in their power to stop peace talks, to not sit down with Zelensky or make really unrealistic demands, like Zelensky's got to come to Moscow even though they tried assassinating him multiple times, Europe needs to prepare now, because the coalition of the willing has been meeting for quite some time, but it's not as simple as, hey guys, we need X, Y, and Z, and everyone goes, okay. They need to plan for this, they need to fund for this, they need to make equipment, they need to put together rules and regulations and guidelines, and if all these troops are going in, they speak different languages, well, we need bases, and we need training facilities, and we need this. It takes a while to get there. And so every time they have a meeting, they've been putting together these checklists, lists to which, this is what we're talking about, you guys go back to your countries, decide what you can do, what you can afford, what you want to do, if you want to put troops or do something else, and then come back. So this now being like the 4th or 5th meeting of this, they're now finalizing those agreements. Now, a lot of this does depend on the United States and what they decide to do, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but let's go ahead and kind of break it down. Starting off with Zelensky's comments. These are prior to the comments that he put on social media after the meeting. First, he says that Ukraine and European partners have agreed on a general framework for security guarantees. So that's still loose. They're still working through who's supplying what, but a general means this is what we need. Now we need you guys to look at this and see what you guys can fill in here. Who could do air defenses? Who can close the sky? Who can give intelligence? That's what they're kind of plugging in. It says here that each participating country is preparing its own documents to formalize contributions. Once again, everyone's picking their own things, but Zelensky emphasized a strong Ukrainian army, meaning that we don't want your troops fighting for us. We just need to make our army here stronger with more weapons from you guys. Zelensky has been very anti-international legion / foreign actors working on behalf of Ukraine inside of Ukraine. He doesn't want to see other countries lose men, which is why the only troops he really wants in Ukraine are the peacekeepers. Then he urged European defense companies to move to fully production capability to support Ukraine. If there's a way for you to build factories or get things rolling, please do this. Let's do this push now. I know that you may have your national interest at heart, but at the end of the day, if we fail, they're coming for you. So let's go ahead and push for Ukraine to stop Russia now, punish Russia now, so that they don't move forward. Then we started hearing from more world leaders. Macron making major announcements. One is that 26 European countries have committed to this reassurance force, so the peacekeepers that's going to be in Ukraine. That's right. 26 European nations have committed to essentially putting troops inside of Ukraine only when peace happens. Now, Russia, they talk about this later, but this reassurance force is, as we're finding, is the best way to stop Russia from invading Ukraine again. It's A, the quickest, and B, the cheapest. Because while, yes, Ukraine should get Tomahawk missiles, they're not available right now just to give to Ukraine willy-nilly. Sure, Ukraine needs more air defense systems like Patriots. Once again, they're great in theory, but countries, A, don't want to give them up, and B, it takes a while to produce these things, which are hundreds of millions of dollars on every single component. The cheapest and the fastest way is peace today, fly in the troops, and boom. Then Russia can't invade, because then they would be hitting, whether they be French or UK, British, whether they be Germany, the Germans not going to put troops in there, or Italian. There's a lot of things there when you put the troops inside, which is why Vladimir Putin from day one has said no, because he wants to continue this thing. Macron then warned Russia of new sanctions if it continues to reject peace talks. I know what you're saying, but didn't Putin just say yesterday that he's willing to meet with Zelensky? No. Ultimately, what we saw yesterday during Putin's speech, which we did break down on TikTok, was a man saying that Zelensky's not the legitimate president. He's just the head of the administration at this moment. That Zelensky needs to give up all those territories, needs to agree to not joining NATO ever, pretty much all the maximum things, and then said that Zelensky needs to come to Moscow if he wants to meet, which is against everyone's thing, even Trump. I mean, we were talking about them meeting in Turkey, a neutral country. We've even heard about the Vatican. We've heard about other countries. But why would Zelensky, who Russia's been trying to assassinate a few dozen times, just willy-nilly go into Moscow? Knowing the history of what Russia does to political rivals. That was stupid. Even Trump thinks that's stupid. But why would Putin do this? You see, Donald Trump is making his decision soon on what he's going to do to Russia. And that could be secondary sanctions in other countries, tariffs. It could be more weapons for Ukraine. Trump just actually hinted yesterday with the president of Poland that there are a second and third phase of these sanctions, which we know we've spoken to senators and congressmen about this, and it's just a matter of Trump just finally being on board about it. So we're seeing Putin trying to show Trump, look, I'm trying, when realistically it's like saying, no, you're just trying to look like you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, when realistically you're making it unachievable and just trying to appease Trump, and that's not going to work here. Then Macron talked about the sanctions like we just talked about. He did confirm that the United States is involved fully with security guarantees for Ukraine. What would they be? It's not going to be troops on the ground, nor is it going to be sending weapons to Ukraine. The United States, they're selling weapons to NATO and Europe to give to Ukraine. They're willing to do that. On top of that, we do know that the United States is on board with intelligence, which I need to add in. They've been doing nonstop. Yes, they stopped under Pete because Pete's an idiot. But the United States, anytime there are certain kind of attacks going on, the United States to provide certain things for Ukraine. We also know that they're allowing the United States military to do surveillance. I mean, Poseidons have been flying around the Black Sea for quite some time. It's no secret there. And then we know they're going to do some kind of something in the sky, whether it be closing the sky, maybe that's U.S. aircraft flying nearby or in Ukraine. I mean, that will definitely stop Russian missiles, knowing that there's U.S. military aircraft flying in Ukrainian borders. But once again, that's still up in the air. They'll be finalized in the next few days. Then when it comes to Trump, obviously, you know, Witkoff was there, but they also spoke to Trump, which we'll talk a little bit later about the conversation between Zelensky and Trump, because we haven't heard Trump's side yet. We only heard Zelensky's side yet. But we do know that Trump, under the White House and a few things, did make some points to the European leaders saying that, hey, Europe, you guys need to do two things. One here, stop buying Russian oil. And you might be saying, but they're not. They are, though. Like, in all honesty, I've spoken to senators about this. Germany, for example. I know for a fact that Germany is still funneling ways to get the Russian energy. It's just the way that it is. Whether it's coming through India, it's being washed and then sold, or other countries or whatever, it's still happening. And so Trump is saying, yo, guys, you got to cut that out. Yes, you guys are going to suffer a little bit, but if we could starve Russia, this war is going to end sooner. So let's start it now, especially before the winter hits, when it's really going to be bad. So he says, stop buying oil. And then he says, we need to urge all of you, all European countries, to put more pressure onto China, who is providing Russia with parts to build weapons, or just weapons in general, just not put together. And of course, is also buying gas and oil. And we need to put more pressure on them. Obviously, this is two ways, in the sense of Trump wants this, because he wants to hurt Russia, but also hurt China, because now they're trying to become a major superpower. And obviously, if you're Trump, you're like, oh no, we don't want that. No, thank you. Done with this. But then we also heard from global leaders. I really only want to go through two right now. The EU Commission President, who said she spoke with the Prime Minister from India. Obviously, India is giving a lot of money to Russia. In India's defense, it's really cheap oil, and they're making a lot of money. So it is kind of hard. And so she said that she pressured India into really stopping what they're doing here, or of course there'll be more consequences from the United States. The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer declared that Putin cannot be trusted, something that we all knew. Obviously, I think that was just a comment to say. He cited that the recent Russian attacks on Kyiv damaged the British Council and EU delegation buildings. He said the coalition has an unbreakable pledge to Ukraine with Trump's backing, just kind of sending a message to Russia saying like, hey, look, we're all together now. You thought that meeting with Trump went well? He's with us. He's not with you. And then he welcomed commitments to send long-range missiles to Ukraine. Yeah, that's pretty big. I mean, granted, the UK has been sending the Storm Shadows and a few other things. But yeah, that's a lot of good things coming from the UK. Now, NATO. I gotta admit, this was a pretty big bombshell that I don't think many people are actually even talking about, because, let's be honest, Putin doesn't want any Western troops inside of Ukraine, especially NATO. Remember, he started this invasion because of NATO, even though if you go through history, Ukraine was never going to join NATO, and Ukraine actually had a no-block law put in place, and then Russia invaded, and then Ukraine went, well, now we should join NATO. It's actually Russia's invasion of Ukraine which made Ukraine want to join NATO. Just putting that out there. And so with Putin not wanting NATO troops inside of Ukraine, according to Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, he's not opposed to NATO sending troops to Ukraine. Yeah, and I know Putin's not going to be happy about that, but I don't think really anyone cares. And so he said that Russia has no right to decide whether or not Ukraine can have Western troops deployed in their country during peacetime. And I keep saying peacetime because Ukraine doesn't want foreign troops inside of Ukraine, and the rest of the world don't want their troops inside of Ukraine during war. So keep that in mind. Now, he did say that NATO troops could go in as peacekeepers, something that, yes, countries would have to decide on that, but whatever. He stated that Ukraine's sovereignty means only Kyiv decides who can enter. Meaning that if there's a country like, I don't know, Hungary, they could say, you know, we don't want them here, if that's okay. Mostly because of Viktor Orban. But that being said, he warned the West must stop treating Putin as too powerful, because they're painting Putin as this demigod. And long story short, he's not. And if we keep doing that, he keeps boosting his head. But if we scale him down and treat him as though he's a little, then guess what? That's going to hurt him mentally and make him look really bad. So what is Russia's reaction? Well, it's funny you say that, because realistically speaking, I am currently on TASS at this very moment, and their comments are kind of interesting, because, I mean, they're always angry about NATO troops. I will tell you that we never got like official details, full quotes from people. I know the Foreign Russian Ministry, Sergei Lavrov, said on the 30th that, obviously sending troops is undermining the progress being made for settlements and blah, blah, blah. But the one person that did speak is as we say, the countryside drunk himself, the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who, I swear, that guy must be drinking nonstop because he just spews random things out constantly. What did he say now? Okay, he threatened retaliation over the use of frozen Russian assets to fund Ukraine's defense. He then mocked the UK's announcement that £1 billion in weapons for Ukraine have been financed through the frozen Russian funds. Essentially, he is angry that Russia attacked Ukraine and that the world froze the funds and that the world then chose to take the windfall of that money to fund Ukraine to then attack Russia. He's angry because they're losing money. That's what it comes down to. And to be honest with you, it was really smart years ago when they started doing this. Now that $300 billion that is frozen, the original assets and all that, I don't think they're ever really going to touch. I think that's going to be more or less like a bargaining chip. Like Russia will give you that money back if you give up this, this, and this. But realistically, that money should go to fund Ukraine's rebuild. But it's funny that Russia gets angry, he gets angry, that Ukraine is defending themselves with the money that Russia would have made. Because, Russia, you didn't need to invade Ukraine. They have a right to defend themselves, and the rest of the world doesn't want to pay for it. And so what's the best way to do this? Take the Russian things and give it to Ukraine. And I will tell you something. It's funny that the Russians are getting angry by this, because at the end of the day, all the countries, especially in the G7, are making a lot of money off of Russia. And I don't think people realize this, how much money they are making in that windfall. Granted, they're giving Ukraine all this stuff as a loan and then getting repaid from that down the line. But Russia gets angry about this because they're watching all of their money kind of just flow away into everyone else's pockets but them. And Medvedev made that a point there. And he went on to say that Moscow could seize British property inside of Russia, in which there really isn't 300 billion, not that much there. That's a funny threat. And then he suggested that Russia could take back some of its value by taking Ukrainian land, in which, to quote even the President of the United States, Russia's getting inches. So I'm not sure how that would work. Because even in their summer offensive, they really didn't go anywhere. This has really been a failure of a summer for the Russian military, and I don't think they realize that. All of this aside, about 1 hour ago, we finally got some kind of information from Zelensky about how the meeting went with the President of the United States. Now, once again, only hear Zelensky's side. I will update Truth Social while I'm recording this video. And no, nothing from Trump yet. And in it, Zelensky says, a long and very detailed conversation with President Trump, the President of the United States. We spoke after today's meeting of the Coalition of the Willing in Paris. European leaders also participated on the call. So I'm assuming that the second they were done their meeting, they FaceTimed him. He was there. First and foremost, we talked about how to push the situation towards real peace. We discussed different options, and the most important thing is pressure, using strong measures, particularly economic ones, to force an end to the war. The key to peace is depriving Russia's war machine of money, depriving it of its resources. So that is going after the Russian oil refineries and then going after them selling the stuff. We also spoke about the maximum protection for Ukraine's skies. Until peace comes, Ukrainians must not be at the mercy of constant Russian attacks. Russian missiles and drones must not take lives. Ukraine has proposed a format for protecting our skies for the U.S. to consider. I thank President Trump for supporting our people. We agreed on further contacts. So, obviously, it looks like that the United States, at least on a proposal from Ukraine, could potentially close or try to close the skies over Ukraine. And once again, I keep saying this is from the Ukrainian side. We haven't heard from the Trump side yet. But I could imagine if Trump wants to, and he probably could, he could announce in like 3 or 4 days or a week, we've tried to do a peace deal. We tried to get Putin to sit down with Zelensky. He refused. He refuses to stop. He keeps killing civilians and targeting only civilian buildings. And the only way to get him from targeting civilians is if we close the Ukrainian skies. In which I can imagine that the United States, as part of the security guarantees, could send aircraft into Ukrainian airspace and shut it down. I could see this, in which it's not boots on the ground. It is a major security guarantee because Russia would never send a missile or a drone into Ukrainian skies if there is F-35s flying F-22s, if there are F-16s that are American fighter pilots, or maybe even NATO, because he already said he's not giving weapons to Ukraine. But if there's a way to stop this war, if there's a way to do this in a way that protects NATO and European countries, well, I can see Trump say yes to this. And I'm sure he'll probably make NATO pay for it, or European countries, or whatever. But at the end of the day, I could see this actually being a thing. Now, this all leads us to where we are today. Well, we know that Russia is still attacking Ukrainian civilians, still going after things they shouldn't be. But I feel like after today's meeting, we finally have a good framework of this is what we need to do, and we need to do this soon. My mindset is I'm still looking at December as like a time in which we'll actually see a ceasefire. And I still think we're on that track. We just got to give it some time, and it will get there. It's just a matter of getting all the countries positioned, get all the countries together and ready to be able to knock it all out. But I want to know what you think in the comment section below. There's a lot to take in there. Like I said before, I did the other video on TikTok in 3 minutes. This one's about 23 minutes. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. And I need to add, if you guys like my videos, if you like my free newsletters, if you like all these things, please do consider becoming a paid member on Substack. I obviously want to make this my full-time job. I am a full-time reporter, just so you do know. But I have a full-time job at night from 8 p.m. to 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I do the 9 videos on TikTok and the long-form videos and other things. And I would love to do it full-time. So if you like what I do and you want to support me into the future, I'll put the link down in the description for the Substack newsletter, in which there is a paid version of it. And so I would be greatly appreciated if you do sign up for that. Of course, you'll get your name at the end of these videos. But everyone else, I want to thank you for joining me. Please, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, turn on notifications, give this video a thumbs up, and feel free to share this video if you find this very interesting or if you just think that my content is good. Anyway, you guys stay safe. I'll see you later.